Good evening. My name is Christina Holtz, and I'm a volunteer with the Hamilton-Wenham League of Women Voters. The Hamilton-Wenham League of Women Voters welcomes you to our modified Candidates Night presentation highlighting the school committee race in both towns. With us tonight, we have candidates Dana Alara and Anna Siedzik. Ty Prima, the third candidate who's running, was not able to participate, unfortunately, due to some conflicts with his schedule. But we will be posting information from him as we get it on our social media channels, so please watch for that. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Paul Mihailidis.
Thank you, Christina. It's great to be with everybody, and I'd like to first start by thanking the Hamilton-Wenham League of Women Voters for still hosting this event. I think it's as important time as any for us to be available and to hear the volunteers in our community share their thoughts. So we appreciate Christina and Lindsay and others for helping. And thanks to Dana and Anna for being here with us tonight. And thanks also to Ty for also offering his services to the town. The way that this evening will go, or this session will go, is to try to be succinct, but offer a range of questions for the candidates to answer and then share with the community. We will have opening statements first. There'll be 2-minute opening statements, and the League of Women Voters did some coin flips earlier, and Dana was elected to go first. After the opening statements, we'll have 4 alternating questions, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. We'll rotate who answers first and second, and then there will be 1-minute closing statements. So we're going to get going each in the 2 minutes, just so those of you watching know. I won't be raising my hand because I have a question, but at the 30-second mark left in their answer, I will raise hand to signal 30 seconds left, and I will give a thumbs up when the time is up, simply to let them know that we're happy that they've answered the question in full. So we will get going, and we don't have an audience that we have to take real questions from, so that's great. So we will launch right away. Opening statements are 2 minutes, and we're gonna have Dana offer hers first, and then we'll go to Anna. So Dana, take it away.
Thank you, Paul. My name is Dana Alara, and I have lived in Hamilton since 2002. Like many families in Hamilton and Wenham, my husband and I chose to move here and bring our family here because of the schools and the reputation for excellence in the schools. Both of our sons attended the Hamilton-Wenham schools, and they graduated from the high school. I was a Cutler room parent from day one, and I have been a leader in the schools and the community ever since. Over the years, I've held a lot of leadership positions in the community, including I was the chairperson of Hamilton Pac 35 Cub Scouts. I was the elementary directory chairperson. I've been the co-president of the middle and high school Friends. I was a booster parent for the track and field team at the high school. I've been on search committees for administrators. I'm a member of the Early Childhood Partners Advisory Counselor, the League of Women Voters, and I'm a facilitator for the past 10 years at the Accord Food Pantry. Currently, I am the Grant Committee Chairperson for the Hamilton-Wenham Ed Fund. In this role, I work closely with teachers and administrators who are looking to create innovative change in the district. Over the past 6 years on the Ed Fund, I have had the opportunity to work collaboratively with many Hamilton-Wenham teachers as they move through the grant writing process, the approval process, and the implementation process of grants. My Ed Fund term ends this month, and I want to continue to work toward providing educational excellence for the students in our towns. I believe I would be a valuable member of the school committee. I have the skills needed to work collaboratively with people who have varied backgrounds and opinions and points of view. And I've seen the passion and the devotion that our teachers have and bring to this district every day, and the dedication that our parents and students have in this town. These teachers, parents, and students will continue to be our greatest assets as we move toward facing the very real challenges ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Anna?
All right, thank you both. My name is Anna Siedzik. We moved here in 2007. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington. So I'm a West Coast girl who then came east to go to college. So I graduated in the year 2000 from Yale University with a major in history and a minor in education. So a lot of my formal academic training has to do with educational structures, social and economic root forces of different systems in sort of American society. So I'm a trained social historian. I did spend 1 year teaching, and it was brutal, and it gave me great respect for what it takes to be a classroom teacher. So I know just enough about classroom life to know that it takes a pretty incredible person to handle it. After doing a bunch of other different things, I taught, I did legal services, got very involved in housing policy. I went back to school and got a degree in museology. And for the last almost 20 years, I have been a museum registrar, which has exposed me to a really unique set of skills, a lot of contract negotiations, loan agreements, customs, couriering, if you need to ship artwork around the world, a fine eye for detail. So it's been a really interesting professional portfolio. Much like Dana, I've done a lot of work in our community locally. I'm very vested in what's happening here. So I'm a local coach with Hamilton-Wenham youth soccer, with youth basketball. I'm a Girl Scout leader. Also very involved with the directory. So that's an odd thing to have in common, to be honest, something about the directory. So I'm really passionate about our local community and making sure that our kids get the very best possible educational opportunity. I've also been very involved in global activism in terms of gender equity, housing policy, done a lot of work as a player advocate with various groups that are really focused on making sure that all people, regardless of their background, have fair opportunity to play, to learn, really involved with sport for development work. So I'm excited to bring those sort of high-level strategic skills and thinking and background to some grassroots work in our local schools to try to improve the quality of education that we offer, look for systemic forces, but also just bring about real change so that we as a community can really grow together into a 21st century schooling operation.
Great, thanks, Anna. And thanks both. It's really great to hear of your already lengthy commitments to helping these towns be what they are. Question time. So once again, we have 4 questions that we are that I'll ask tonight, and Anna, you'll answer first. I realize it's not the raise hand function I'm giving you; it's the clap function when there's 30 seconds left. And I am also applauding your elegant answers at the same time as warning you. So we'll have 4 questions, 2 minutes each, and then a closing statement. So Anna, I will ask the first question. You can start. The question is, what are your expectations of the new superintendent, and how will you support her?
Okay, good question. I think my expectations are that she comes into our district sort of ready to bring her own knowledge base and expertise. And part of the reason that she was hired was that she has some really good credentials coming in. So I would expect her to sort of understand what her strengths are and leverage them for us. But I also think that this is very much a community and a district in a little bit of turmoil. We've had some historical turnover. There's an underlying tension, I think, between those who support the school budget and those who don't. So I would also hope that she has the ability to really listen carefully to different historical trends and different voices. But that said, I'm a big believer that new energy brings new ideas. And I would like her to sort of bring, synthesize the information from the past. What can we learn from? What mistakes can we avoid? Often in conversations in the community, I'm sort of hearing, oh, we've done this before, and this is how it used to be, and we had this process. And I think a historical reference is really important. You don't want to repeat yourself. But at the same time, I expect leadership from her. I think the community does. The superintendent's a really valuable part of our community. So I see her as a synthesizer of the past, a bit of a visionary leader for the future, but also someone who's a really strong worker bee. We have a difficult district. We're a regional school district. We have competing budgets. So I think that she will have a lot of work cut out for her. In terms of support, I feel like I could be a really good bridge to some of that history, but also the communication patterns. I've gotten myself involved in a lot of different activities. I know people. I'm probably a bit of an over communicator. Friends who know me might say I communicate too much sometimes. So I think my role could be helpful to her in sort of giving her information, putting her in touch with people who know where the potholes are, know what the secrets are, making introductions to people that might be helpful to establish a functional framework for moving forward. So listening, collaboration, leadership, vision, and I'd like to be helpful and supportive of making that process smooth and transparent so that she can really hit the ground running on July 1st.
Great, thanks, Anna. Dana, the question is over to you. I can repeat it. What are your expectations of the new superintendent and how will you support her?
Thank you. So I'm realizing that going second is difficult because a lot of what Anna said, I will probably repeat. I do think that in terms of expectations, my expectation and my hope is that an excellent school superintendent will be an excellent communicator. I think that's probably the number one leadership role. Obviously, one in order to be an effective communicator, she will also have to be a good listener. And to echo what Anna said, that listening is not only from the staff, the students, but also from the broader community. And, you know, listening is not just about being, knowing when to be silent, but it's also about clarifying questions to make sure that she understands. And being from outside of the community is going to be really important, that she gets clear on asking questions about what does that mean. Again, what's the historical context behind why people feel that way or why people feel so strongly about certain things. In terms of supporting her, professionally, I am a coach. I work with people to listen to what they are dreaming of creating and then helping them to get clear on exactly what that is. So I see that as a potential way to support not only her, but the school committee as a whole. And so I hope that I myself could be an effective listener and then reframe or reflect back to make sure that we can get some really clear ideas for vision and communication to the community.
Great, thanks, Dana. Okay, the next question, Dana, you get to start on this one, and the question is, what category within the operations of the school committee, so we have finance, policy, legislative, education, etc., is best suited to your skills and interests?
Sure. So I was originally trained as a school psychologist, and I actually got my master's degree. I did my internship actually at Cutler School many years ago, before we lived in town and before I had children even. So I have a background in education and an understanding in education. My experience with the Ed Fund has strengthened that understanding of the education needs specifically in our town, the needs of our teachers and our administrators. I see my skills now, my professional skills, which I just mentioned as a coach, as really lending themselves to a wide variety of those different sections of the school committee. I see specifically around policy, budget concerns, and negotiations being areas that, as a coach, what I do is I work with diverse groups. One of the things I love to do as a coach is facilitate group conversations. And the idea behind that is to be able to be a sounding board and allow people to nurture and open up a safe space to say controversial, potentially, things, and then to come together and create collaborative solutions to those problems. So again, I think that policy is a lot around listening and creating consensus, as well as budget. Obviously, we all are going to have to be involved in budget, reflect some of those skills. And I think I might leave it at that. Thank you.
Within just under the applause. Okay, Anna, the question's to you. What category within operations of the school committee, and they list finance, policy, legislative, education, etc., is best suited to your skills and interests?
Sure. So, I have sort of this strategic background. So I think, a position where you sort of can look at the larger forces, and then how to activate them, on the ground level. So for me, obviously, I think policy is a natural fit too, thinking about what are the mandates, what are the guidelines we're giving to our district. That seems like an obvious fit. Because I do have concerns about financial sustainability and strategic planning and capital, I feel like, again, everyone's going to have to work really hard on the budget. But I also have a really fine eye for detail, and I will confess I love a good Excel spreadsheet. I mean, I really do. It's a problem. So I think I could bring a good balance of good strategic thinking, but a high attention to detail, and really making sure, is that really what we think we're spending on? Is that really we need it? And sort of put those together. One group that I think also, to me, I've heard rumors used to exist, and I think might need to be resurrected, is a communications subcommittee within the district, because it seems like there's really been a breakdown of communication between various town boards in amongst each other. Sometimes it's unclear what's really happening. I don't know that the school committee always knows what the select boards are doing or the FinComs are doing, and vice versa. I've sat in a number of meetings and I'm not sure that the channel is there. So I would like to consider some kind of communications subgroup. And I think that could also dovetail to the public as well. Right now, there's a lot of information people are asking for. There's not always a clear path for communication from the school committee. But I also think that needs to be a two-way street, where now there's a lot of feedback from the community saying, well, we want this from our schools, and what about this curriculum idea, and what about this issue? So I think if the school committee itself had a structure in place to better facilitate communication within these groups, whether internally to the town, externally to the public, those are obvious places. And then the last one, and this is again really high level, legislation, policy, not just local policy, but state policy. We're under huge pressure right now because of state and federal funding issues. And I think we need a powerful presence on the school committee to go to our state legislators, to go to our federal legislators and say, look, you need to fund public schools. We need to have a relief in terms of that funding support. And I would just love to go head to head on the legislative issues that are the underlying support system for our schools. So that's where I think I could be helpful.
Great, thank you. And the next question, which you get to lead off, actually kind of leads right into that specific question around funding. So this is a bit of a longer question, so bear with me. Anna, you'll go first. The question is, funding for school budgets includes overrides, debt exclusions, state funding, and unfunded mandates, which impacts every household in the district. What is your understanding of the current budget challenges, and do you feel they have been discussed enough?
Only 2 minutes? It seems a little cruel. So my understanding is, that again, the high level balance, about $4 million or so of our current budget is provided by the state. When a budget exceeds over $30 million, locally, just the basic math, and it says there's extreme pressure on the local property tax base to make that happen. So I think the root of the problem, and I've said this in social media and many conversations, is that our school costs have been increasing for decades. Everything in life has gotten more expensive, but our fundamental revenue generating model has not changed in these two towns for years and years. And so systemically, we're coming up with the same problem where year after year, we have overrides and people complain, and it's frustrating because we're actually paying quite a bit in tax. And I'm sensitive to those needs too as a taxpayer, not only for school-age families, but also for seniors who are getting taxed out of their homes, who maybe don't have kids in the school and want to be supportive. But there's a fundamental limitation to what you can fund on local property taxes when your state funding is so limited. So I personally think that one of the strategic goals that the school committee needs to step up to the plate a little bit more is to look at those overall revenue forces and understand what are we needing our schools to do in the 21st century. What elements of our funding platform and our existing budget are either no longer necessary or maybe they're obsolete. I totally believe in transparency. So if there's money in the school budget that needs to be reallocated or is maybe redundant, I'm all for finding ways to cut. But I think at this point, having spent a lot of time in those schools, personally with my children, talking to staff, just observing with my own eyes, I personally do not think our district has a spending problem. I think our community has a revenue problem. And I think it's been left to fester for so long now that we have a real undercurrent of discontent. So I think the solution to the budget is a little more structural. I think it's something can be overcome, but I think it's going to require a huge collaboration between everyone within the community, especially those on elected boards who have policy positions who can really shape the direction of how our towns raise money to support the things that we want to support.
Well done, and almost perfect timing. Thank you. It's a complicated question, and Dana, I'll repeat it to you. And I know this is a question that's really at the forefront of everyone's mind in light of everything our community and our country has been going through for the last 4 or 5 months. I really appreciate you both answering openly. So Dana, funding for school budgets includes overrides, debt exclusions, state funding, and unfunded mandates that impact every household in the district. What is your understanding of the current budget challenges, and do you feel like they've been discussed enough?
Thank you. I think Anna said it best when she started off by saying there was only 2 minutes. And so I might try to talk about a little bit about what Anna didn't talk about, just in hopes that we'll gain some understanding. I think all of what she said was important, and then I'll try to say something, and there's 100 more things to say. In terms of one of the things that I don't know that the public really understands about what's happening right now with the budget is that what has happened is that, if I can try to do this on Zoom, if our budget, our whole budget is this, the towns pay this much, and then the state pays a certain portion, and the state has let us know that their portion is going to be cut by 20%, and big cuts are going to happen. And one of the things that I think people in town that needs to be, to the communication piece, being communicated, is that these cuts are going to be made, and the ask for the towns is going to be the same. That this is hard, I think, for the public to understand, that we are going to have to make budget cuts, and the ask that your taxes are paying for is still going to be remaining the same. So that's just something that I think, in answer to your question, is, has it been discussed enough? I think it is complicated enough that it needs to be discussed a lot, over and over, so that people are clear that the budget that the schools have requested from the 2 towns is going to remain the same. Thank you. There's so much more to say on that.
No, thank you. I do, and I appreciate your kind of complimentary answers as well. We all know that this is important, and we have elections coming up. It's an important time to discuss. The final question. We will start with Dana, and this question is obviously about looking forward a little bit. So, what do you think is the most pressing need for our schools in the near future, and how would you address it?
Sure. So this is a really challenging question, because right now, in the current state of our world, is really showing us in real time that we can't predict the future. In the immediate near future, we are going to need to create a flexible scaffolding that will allow our schools and our teachers to be fluid to the changing rules and demands of the pandemic. At the same time, I recognize that there are pressing issues in our 2 towns that have nothing to do with this current world crisis. We have revenue issues. Without a business tax base, our property taxes are high, as we've already talked about, and school budgets are stretched, and our town budgets are stretched thin, even in less trying times, not to mention now. Our schools are old. Maintenance has been deferred for years and years. Our teachers are super innovative and dedicated, and it's a thing around town that I've heard that they could teach in a paper bag. And I think that's true. I've seen them do some pretty amazing things. But I feel like we really need to acknowledge that they shouldn't have to teach in a paper bag, and that is in some ways doing a disservice to compliment them by saying that. To really create the excellence that this town really demands, we need to have programming, physical infrastructure, supplies, technology. And finally, I see my time is almost up. We really need to bridge the divide. Civic conversation can and should be available. Oh, sorry, I'm getting an error message here. Oh, okay. Sorry. Civic conversation needs to be a part of this conversation, and it's essential to listen to those with whom we don't agree and to bring our towns together and our communities together. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. So the fourth question, Anna, repeat it for you. What do you think is the most pressing need for schools in the near future? How would you address it?
Thank you. So I sort of focus on two things. I think they talk very closely with each other. One of the things I talk a lot about is DEI thinking, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And often that gets sort of pegged on more obvious ways. But I think in schools, the diversity component also involves neurocognitive diversity. And we've learned a lot about how kids learn. And so part of what things I think we should address is really making sure that students at all levels of the learning spectrum are supported. The gifted students, the special needs students, and also the kids in the middle. Because frankly, if you have a gifted student who's bored, they're a disruption. If you have a special needs student who is unregulated and unsupported, they're disruptive. And then that hurts everyone in the middle. So I think we really need to have some thoughtful thinking about what are the programs within the buildings that will support students at every level of learning. And that ties to the next point, which is that requires space, dedicated spaces. That requires staff that are trained to identify those learning issues before they become bigger problems that can be more expensive. So to that end, our buildings are in a state of disrepair. The three elementary schools are all three were built in 52 and 53, renovated in 1989. That's a long time to ask a heavy use building that gets pounded on by elementary school kids to endure for 70 years without a major upgrade. So I think, we have some infrastructure problems. I think there are also physical plant problems at the middle and high school that have been well documented. So this ties into what kind of spaces are we creating for our students to learn. I love what Dana just said about the paper bag. I think just because that's an outcome our teachers can dance to, we're paying an awful lot in property tax to have a school district that is talking about paper bag learning and talking about cutting essential programs, cutting staff that make the schools work. In my mind, some of the cuts that would be before us are the kinds of things that no longer make school as we know it. So I think as a school committee, we need to provide some leadership to make sure, are we really meeting every student's need? Are we supporting the teachers to give them space and time, physical space and time to be the top-notch professionals that we know that they are? And then long-term, I think if we can get those two issues under control, it will help with our budget issues and our budget woes if we're really prioritizing and being efficient with our budget. I think that's the key thing. Let's be efficient and smart and really leverage the talent that we already have here in town.
Wonderful. So thank you both. We're going to go on to 1 minute closing statements. So I think I will applaud you at the halfway point. These are open closing statements, and you'll get 1 minute each. And Anna, I think you're set to go first for the closing statement, and then we'll go to Dana. So Anna, the floor is yours.
Okay. I think the most important thing I'd like to communicate to voters is just how passionate I am about civic service. And I really see people who are elected that we work for the community. It's our job to listen, to be available, to provide leadership, but I see civil service as a beautiful thing, and I'm called to it. I also want to underscore that for me, public education is sort of the difference between financial solvency or ingrained poverty. I come from a family of recent immigrants. I'm a second-generation American. I have grandparents who did not speak English growing up. And without the power of a strong public school system, I'm not sure what their life would look like, to be honest. So for me, civil service is a calling. It's a duty. I do love it. I also feel like our school district is our future in a very Jeffersonian kind of way. An educated citizenry is a bedrock of democracy. And I feel like we do owe our students and our community to provide as much beautiful public schooling as we can, because I think it will make our country stronger. I think it will make our world stronger. I think our kids deserve every possible thing we can get them. And I'm committed to being a servant to the community. And it would be a great honor to represent Hamilton-Wenham in this new capacity. So thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Dana, 1 minute for your closing statement.
Okay. Thank you for anyone who is taking the time to listen this evening and to be an active citizen in our towns. The more people who step up to be heard, the more people who are willing to lend a hand, the more we listen to each other, the stronger and deeper our community ties become. This is why I hope to have the opportunity to serve. I believe that educating our children is one of the most important things that a community can do. And I have an understanding that there are always going to be limited resources and budget issues that will always need careful thought, clear explanations to the public, and an understanding that economic uncertainty brings fear and worry. My children are already grown up. They got an excellent education here. This is my opportunity to give back to my community in a way that I am passionate about. As a school committee member, I will help the district parents and students in our broader community to get clarity on what it is, that shared vision for Hamilton-Wenham schools and what they're going to look like. And I'll work collaboratively with the community to implement the needed steps to make that vision a reality. Thank you. And I remind you to remind your friends and neighbors to vote on June 25th or by mail ahead of time. And I appreciate the chance to get to talk to you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana and Anna. I really turn it back over to Christina now, but I really just on behalf of being a member of this town, I think this note on civic service and involvement and participation is kind of core to everything we do, perhaps more important now than ever. So really appreciate you two being here, and yeah, best of luck moving forward with everything until the 25th of June.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Yes. Thank you both, Anna and Dana, for participating and also for running. And Paul, thank you so much for moderating. Please watch the Hamilton-Wenham League of Women Voters social media channels for more information on the upcoming elections in both Hamilton and Wenham. And good evening.